Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. Let's start today with a look at some of the day's highlights. Korea's economy grew at its fastest pace in 5 years in the third quarter, thanks to a rebound in domestic consumption and a pickup in government spending. The UK and China agree on a number of business deals, while Xiaomi launches a $316 self-balancing scooter. We'll cover some of the top business news stories making headlines around the globe this week. Is the Korean economy finally on the road to recovery? The country's GDP spiked in the third quarter of this year, rising to a 5-year high as domestic demand offsets sluggish exports. Our 싱싱함을 starts us off.
The Korean economy grew 1.2% on quarter in the July to September period. That's the highest growth rate since the second quarter of 2010 and the first time in 6 quarters for the rate to top 1%. On year, the country's gross domestic product grew 2.6%. The Bank of Korea credited a solid rebound in domestic consumption and a pickup in government spending for the overall growth.
Government's efforts to reinvigorate spending, like cutting consumption tax and a fiscal stimulus package, including an extra budget plan, had a positive effect on the third quarter figures.
And that trend is likely to continue, at least until the end of this year.
With the consumption tax cut scheduled to last until the end of this year, added with the government's supplementary budget, the economy will likely maintain its 1% growth throughout the fourth quarter.
And that's without the help of the country's outbound shipments. Exports, making up half the country's economy, were down 0.2% during the third quarter due to sluggish global demand coupled with a slowdown in China. The central bank said the strong comeback in the third quarter is a sign that the economy is on a recovery track. But experts remain concerned as the current pace of growth cannot be sustained by domestic demand alone, highlighting the need for improved exports. 싱싱함을, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, Korean shipbuilders secured the top 5 spots as the world's largest shipbuilders by order backlog, despite suffering record losses this year. According to global researcher Clarkson Research Services, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering had the largest order backlog of 8.5 million compensated gross tons at the end of September, maintaining its #1 position for 11 consecutive months. Daewoo Shipbuilding was followed by local rivals Hyundai Heavy Industries, Samsung Heavy Industries, and other Hyundai affiliates. Korean shipbuilders suffered huge losses this year due mainly to increased costs from the delivery of low-priced ships and a delay in the construction of offshore facilities. They're closely followed by Chinese and Japanese rivals, which outpaced Korean shipyards in terms of new orders in the third quarter. Apple's latest smartphone models, the iPhone 6s and iPhone 6s Plus, were released in Korea on Friday by the country's 3 major mobile carriers. According to the telecom companies, there will be a subsidy of about $115 for the new phones. The price of the iPhone 6s starts from around $640 for the 16GB model, and the iPhone 6s Plus is available starting at around $890. The mobile carriers are launching events for the new iPhones, that is, earlier in the day, offering various promotions and gifts. Pre-orders of one carrier this week revealed that over 30% reserved the 64GB iPhone 6s in rose gold. Industry watchers are keeping a close eye on the market as high demand for new iPhones often result in mobile carriers offering rebates beyond the legal limit. And now let's have a quick look at how the markets fared here in Seoul today. Korean shares ended higher on this Friday on hopes for additional stimulus measures in Europe and better than expected economic growth data here at home. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi was up 17.4 points to close at 2,040.4. While the tech-heavy Kosdaq also rose 5.67 points to finish at 681.97. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency gained ground against the greenback, ending at 1,124.7 won. Roses are possibly one of the most sought-after flowers in the world, loved for their beautiful colors and fragrance. And we're hearing that more and more people from here at home and abroad have been buying Korean-bred roses. We find out why with our Lee Joo-young.
From green beauty to deep purple and candy party, over 20 different kinds of roses were put on display earlier this month by the state-run Gyeonggi-do Agricultural Institute. The roses are all developed in Korea and are currently being exported to countries like the US, Ecuador, and Colombia. In fact, outbound shipments of Korean roses have surged 60-fold over the past 5 years, from around 50,000 rose trees in 2009 to 3 million last year.
Korean roses display strong qualities, and they are very popular among foreign consumers when it comes to exports.
Due to their cost-effectiveness and high adaptability to Korean soil, they're also popular choices among local farmers.
In terms of the quantity produced, resistance to pests, and longevity, they don't fall behind foreign breeds at all.
And as rose farming gets easier, the rate of distribution across the country of these homegrown roses has increased from about 4% in 2007 to 29% as of last year. And at the same time, royalties saved on technology licensing from other countries have seen a dramatic increase from roughly $192,000 to $1.3 million in the same time period. Researchers say the domestic rose market is set to further expand its presence as farmers continue to breed a variety of roses that appeal to both consumers and producers. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
We all expect to be greeted with a smile when we enter a store or a cheerful voice when we phone a call center. But have you ever wondered about how much emotional stress that these workers might have to endure in order to do that? Our Oh Se-young tells us more.
Service with a smile is a daily task for Chung Ise, a nail artist working in Seoul. Regardless of how she feels that day, chatting with her clients with a cheerful expression is part of her job description.
I make an effort to keep talking to my customers and keep them happy, but it can be difficult when I'm tired.
A recent survey showed that nail art is one of the most emotionally draining jobs in Korea. It involves intensive emotional labor, which requires staff to regulate their emotions. This applies to most service-related workers, which include hotel managers, airline agents, and career consultants. And at the top of the list are telemarketing staff, who go through countless calls on a daily basis.
Stress took over my life. I had to deal with swearing, sexual remarks, and even insults about my parents.
Despite such grueling conditions, most service companies fail to protect or compensate their workers.
Companies in the service industry compete in customer care, so the customer-first policy puts workers in an inferior position, vulnerable to emotional abuse.
To address this situation, lawmakers have tabled a bill to protect the rights of workers under emotional labour. The Labour Ministry is also working on various protection measures.
To prevent high emotional stress, the ministry is running consumer campaigns as well as counseling and consulting sessions.
Experts say emotional labour should be legally recognised as an occupational hazard in order to ensure companies improve working conditions and provide employee support, such as counselling. Oh Se-young, Business Daily.
It's Friday, and that means it's time to look through some of the global business headlines from this week. And for that, we're now joined by our Eunice Kim in the studio. Hello, Eunice.
Hello, June.
All right, so a substantial body of business deals have been signed in the United Kingdom, where Chinese President Xi Jinping has been all week.
You're absolutely right, and he will return to Beijing later on this Friday, wrapping up a 4-day state visit to Great Britain. And with the visit, the East and West states look to be positioning themselves for a new level of partnership, signing off on more than $60 billion in business deals. Take a look. An inspecting of the guards and a horse-drawn carriage to Buckingham Palace.
The UK's pomp and pageantry on display as President Xi Jinping, accompanied by his First Lady, makes the first state visit by a Chinese leader in a decade, hailed as the start of a golden era in Sino-British relations.
I am making this state visit to the UK to build on past achievements, elevate our political mutual trust, deepen practical cooperation in all fields, and take China-UK ties to a new level.
Business deals worth £40 billion were sealed. That's some $62 billion worth, covering everything from introducing hundreds of electric buses and zero-emission taxis to London streets to the production of emissions-free Aston Martin sports cars. British oil giant BP will pursue development projects with China's Petroleum Corporation. Offshore yuan trading in London will be delivered by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And starting next year, Chinese tourists will enjoy extended visitor visas, good for 2 years. And the crowning achievement? British Prime Minister David Cameron called it historic. China's Nuclear Power Corporation will take a 1/3 stake in the UK's new massive nuclear power plant. Hinkley Point, the country's first in 30 years, is poised to be the most expensive atomic plant ever built.
We should go further on trade and investment, not only for China to invest in the United Kingdom, but also for British businesses to expand and grow in China. We should increase our financial and economic cooperation with the UK as the partner of choice for China in the West.
The Cameron government's arms-wide-open approach to China, which has long been criticized for its human rights record among other issues, was not lost on some. But on the streets of China, its diplomacy welcomed.
The British have truly recognized China as an emerging power. In the past, European countries paid less attention to China. Now Britain, as a traditional empire, is taking China seriously and treating it with the same importance as the United States.
Wow, it certainly looks like that President Xi received some full red carpet treatment over there. But relations between the two countries hasn't always been so amicable, right?
Right.
And this could be a watershed moment between the two countries?
Yeah, relations in recent years had been very careful between the two states, especially as China has opened up to commerce to emerge as the world's second largest economy, of course. And even as recently as in 2012, Prime Minister David Cameron's meeting with the Dalai Lama resulted in Beijing giving the cold shoulder to the UK. Now, since then, Cameron and his government have been working hard to restore ties with an eye on trade and economic expansion, even becoming the first Western country to sign up for the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
Well, the U.S. couldn't have reacted well to that. It's a very different posture from the U.S.
It absolutely is. The United States, not so secretly, lobbying for the UK, its traditional historical ally, not to join the AIIB, but for Britain, China is a very important trade partner with the most amount of investment, some $5.1 billion going to the UK last year. This according to Chicago-based multinational law firm Baker & McKenzie. Now, they both see each other as an important post for growth in the East or the West. For example, China has an ambition to export nuclear technology, and there are plans pending government approval for a Chinese reactor to be built in Essex in eastern England. And on the note of human rights, Prime Minister Cameron defended his choice, saying that a strong relationship will lead to discussions and progress on thorny issues such as human rights violations and cyber spying.
All right, so with that under our belt, what else happened in the global business news this week?
Well, we have another big auto recall to tell you about this week, this time affecting 6.5 million vehicles made by Toyota. The Japanese automaker said it's calling back Camrys, Corollas, RAV4s, Highlanders and Yaris's models released between 2007 and 2011 to fix a faulty window switch that can cause overheating and, in rare cases, short circuit and catch fire. A similar problem had been found in 2012, but this latest round is not believed to have caused any accidents, according to the company. Toyota has been bogged down by a series of recalls affecting millions of vehicles in recent years, including those triggered by faulty Takata airbags and defective brakes. Finally, personal transportation for the masses. Chinese startup Xiaomi is set to release a new self-balancing scooter at just 5% the cost of the original Segway. The price tag for the 9-bot Mini is set to start at $315, with a November 3rd release date for Chinese markets and plans underway for European markets. Xiaomi, which helped 9bot acquire Segway back in April, explained the hoverboard can be steered with a knee-high handle and can reach maximum speeds of 16 kilometers per hour, traveling 30 kilometers on a single charge. It also said users will have access to a matching smartphone app for added features like monitoring speed and checking traffic.
Well, it looks like Xiaomi is expanding into all kinds of electronics now.
Absolutely, and they're all affordable, right?
Yes. Thank you so much for coming in today, Eunice.
You bet.
And that does it for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching and have a great weekend, everyone.